I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to the Conversations with Al McFarlane program. Today's Monday. I'm glad to be here and glad to have you along as well. We want to start today with some friends who are doing wonderful work in St. Paul. It's the Walker West Music Academy, and they've announced a new project. Maybe it's not new, but update for a project called Amazing Grace Chorus. And it's a phenomenal program to keep elder people engaged, but also keep our community connected. Uh, I'm pleased to have here Shauna. Is it Shauna Moses, right?
Yes,
Good afternoon, Shauna. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Good afternoon.
And then my friend and my neighbor, I call her my leader, Beverly Probst. I can throw something out my window to her house, so we're pretty close here. Beverly, how you doing?
Oh, great. Thank you.
Well, let's start, Shauna, talking about, first of all, Walker West. It's such a marvelous jewel of an
Mhm.
institution in our community. Talk about that first, and then we'll get back to the Amazing Grace uh, announcement.
Sure. So, as so many know, Walker West is a staple located in the what we know as the Rondo community in St. Paul. That's been there for many years, where two incredible musicians poured into community, uh, Mr. Carl Walker and Mr. Grant West, so many years ago. And since then has educated multiple generations of students, where even folks that we know as artists now have roots in dotted lines that can be tied back to Walker West. And now Walker West is expanding in the sense of moving from being known for giving school age children opportunities after school. Now it's expanding to our earliest babies, our learners there with preschool programming, all the way to the other side with providing programming for elders too. And so the Amazing Grace Chorus is one of those opportunities for elders. Yeah.
And so the Amazing Grace chorus, in a nutshell, what is it? We'll go deep in it in a few minutes, but basically, what is the
Sure.
chorus?
Sure. The Amazing Grace Chorus is really a community of singers, of Black folks 55 and older, right, who do two things. One, we sing because we believe in the power, the healing power of music that comes. With that comes retention of culture. With that comes the joy that comes from singing. And we also use it as a portal to help dispel myths attached to dementia in our community.
Explain that.
Yep. So often when we think about dementia and other Alzheimer and other forms of dementia too, what we find is that we're even hesitant to claim such language, right? Like that my mother or my auntie or uncle has dementia. We might use language like, mama's getting forgetful, right? Or that's just how whoever our loved one is,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
But maybe what we haven't historically done is see elements that start to happen that are signs that dementia may be occurring for our loved ones. And so, with some of the historic work that's been happening with folks who love in our community, like Miss Beverly Probst, Van Hayes, other folks in community, they've been working hard historically to try to spell out and share signs of dementia. How can we age in healthy ways as Black folks? Mhm.
Beverly, what are the challenges of us growing old and experiencing dementia or Alzheimer's forgetfulness?
What are they? Well, one of the things that I often say is we forget our keys. And in addition to not knowing where we keys put us, or our glasses, we're looking all over for our glasses and they're right on the top of our head.
Hmm.
We're looking all over for our keys, and it's just that we forgot where we put them. And that causes frustration and anxiety. And so part of the dementia that we're talking about is that there's a kind of like a a myth that as you age, those are the kind of common things that are going to happen. But through the Alzheimer's Act on Alzheimer's, I've learned a lot more about why that happens.
Mm. Talk about it. Let's go ahead and go into it. I mean, this is both important information generated, but personal to me because my mom is living with Alzheimer's and dementia, and I know that it's in my family. And so I'm 74 now. I'm trying to think about ways I probably will need to be as planful as I possibly can, figuring out that more than likely dementia is in my future. And so I pay attention to the fact that I can't find my keys and I can't find my eyeglasses, and I get reminded. I got a note on my back door. When I go out the back door, it says, do you have your keys? Do you have your wallet? Do you have your phone? And so I'm at that point now where I'm getting help from family, reminding me to pay attention. And I'm not taking it in a way that's I'm offended by it. I'm just aware because I know it's not a joke. And the likelihood based on my family and people around me is that I'm going to have more challenges as I go along. And if I know that, what can I do to be as prepared as possible? I don't want to be a burden on other people, but I also know that, this is a process that is happening. And the question becomes, what can I do to, protect my health and not being a burden as long as I can?
Mhm.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I became aware of was like around about 2007, I was part of a effort through the Minnesota Alzheimer's Association to really look in the African American community, because Alzheimer's as a definition has been around for many years, but for whatever reason, well, I shouldn't say for whatever reason, as usual, there wasn't a focus on the African American community.
Mm-hmm.
And so this initiative that I worked with Van Owens Hayes on as a consultant was really to explore and find out if there was a level of Alzheimer's in the African American community. And what was interesting is that the more I talked to different people about how they were feeling and whether or not there was some times when they forgot certain things, out would come a story like you've just told, where they remember that, as you think about it, there are some times when I've observed my mother or my aunt having those very same symptoms. And I would always try to make them feel better. I said, well, when it really gets bad where they can't find their tennis shoes and they're in the refrigerator, that's the time that we really need to talk.
Mm-hmm.
So as you age, of course, you don't have the same cognitive recall that you used to have when you were younger, because you got a lot of stuff, I call it static, in your mind you're trying to do. And you can't do all the things that you used to do as you age. And so something has to go. And usually it's where you put your keys or what you did with your blue socks, or maybe you put on black socks and you're supposed to have one blue and one black. And those are all kinds of cognitive issues that you kind of put aside. And when I joined as a consultant, one of the first things that I insisted is that we pull people from leadership positions to talk and hear if they had themselves had any incidences where they felt that they were aging. And that's kind of what the term that we use, because we found that using Alzheimer's or memory loss was scaring people. So we said, no, let's talk about aging. And then I learned that aging is a process, and you can age and not have Alzheimer's or not have dementia or not have Parkinson's disease, but you may have some of those symptoms that are related to cognition. So the more we talked, we had a committee, we had the why at the table, we even had our city council and someone from the sheriff department and someone from transportation. And as we talked about what memory loss is, and that it's a stage in aging, and that there are different diagnoses about it, they, for the most part, revealed that they had had experiences with their own family. And that kind of piqued their interest and got them more involved in wanting more information. And so with that, we set up small groups. community people, and we did some stats. And what I learned as a public health nurse, is that individuals that have high blood pressure or obesity or have some cardiovascular issues are very much at risk for the memory loss that they may experience as they age. And so, not getting too scientific, that's where I learned that that was a target group that I wanted to spend more time and find out about. And so I started with my church, and at that time I was taking blood pressures every Sunday. And it was interesting how I learned so much about all the other risk factors that were related to high blood pressure. So how I got involved with the choir was I had a girlfriend, a nurse, research, and she called me up one day and she had researched, yes, I think I have it. And, I don't know what I'm going to do. And so I said, well, I'm going to take you someplace with me and we'll just see how you do. So that was my first time to go to Walker West. And it was before we really named the choir. But one of the things that I observed with my friend is she was so much more comfortable. And she even started using some of her nursing skills. And it was like she was a different person from the one that I picked up. And so that got me more and more involved in the Walker West and making observations and listening and watching. And one of the things that I always mention, which is so profound, and you know this, Al, I'm always telling people to take deep breaths and to inhale and exhale so they'll feel much better. Well, one of the things that is necessary when you sing is that you inhale and exhale so that you can project your voice. Now, I'm not a singer, but I need to tell you, once I started watching those that were following the directions of inhaling and exhaling and using their arms and stretching their feet and all that stuff, I realized that I couldn't sing. I might not sing as well as some, but those exercises helped me project. But now I'm a soprano. I didn't know what I was, but I now know I'm a soprano. So that's kind of my story that got me involved in this effort. And I'm still involved. And I probably will continue. And I'm still reminding people where their glasses are and what they need to do in order so their heart beats better so they get more air.
Beverly, aim your camera down a little bit because I know. Yeah. There we go. A little bit more.
Is that better?
Okay. That's better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, now you can see me. Yeah, I'm becoming very skilled with this device.
It's kind of cool. This technology is amazing that we can connect. I love doing my show like this, but I also love that we can bring in people from anywhere around the world, and have good, close conversations, and that's so important. Brother Carl Cloman, good to see you, my friend. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm excellent. So good to see you.
Thank you.
Tell me more about the choir, the chorus.
Well, the chorus is a great opportunity for people to come together as we build community. We share in music, which is a common theme and a common language for our people, for mostly African-American people who are part of the choir, some from the islands and things like that. So we have a common goal of building community through music. And one of the things that is very important is that music reminds us of our younger years when we access memory with our music. We can connect with things from the past and how we grew up and things like that. So it's a wonderful opportunity to connect memory with music.
So tell me some stories about that. I think that's a fascinating concept. And I wonder about how you, who are the professionals, use your knowledge of the power of art and the power of music and the connection between art, music, and the spirit, and with life itself. And what discoveries drive you as you do ministry in music, and as you use tools, techniques, knowledge, appreciation of sound, of making sound, of being sound. What do you discover along the way as you do this?
Well, people often will comment, this music reminds me of when I was young, when I would hear my mom singing around the house, and I knew that she was feeling well because of the music that she sang. That kind of thing. So it connects us in that way. I'm reminded of a story of Dr. Thelma Buckner, who was one of our members.
Mhm.
Now she's passed on now, but she would say that her sister had an opportunity to sing gospel music. She had lost her memory, but not her mind.
Mm.
And when she sang gospel music, it connected her in such a way with language, with words, with musical skills that other things didn't offer as an opportunity. So, music is a wonderful way to reach people and to connect community.
That statement, lost my memory, but not my mind, sound like something Black folks would say. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
classic statement, So unpack that. What is it? Beverly, what does that mean? If somebody says, I might have lost my memory, but I ain't lost my mind. What's going on? That's a rich statement. What about that?
Oh, that's a good question. Well, I'll go back to Thelma Buckner. I can hear her sing the song that we would sing. And this is a woman that has always been a singer
Mhm.
and has always been a preacher.
Mhm.
And she didn't change her demeanor at all when she would come. But when she would sing her favorite song, Search Me, Lord, the
Mhm.
whole room would just kind of calm down and we would all begin singing. And one of the things that we learned was the call and response, which is a cultural thing.
Mhm.
It happens in churches and it happens when we're in the choir. And even in church choirs, you'll notice more and more that the congregation is turned to and asked to join in. There's something that's very relational that causes that to happen. And when Thelma Buckner would sing, we could hear the past in her singing. One of the comments that I made is that in the African culture, there's always been a voice to sing. That because we didn't know the English language, as I was told when I went to Africa, we knew the Bible. And so a lot of the times when we spoke or when we sang, it was passages from the Bible. And I believe that's what happens when Amazing Grace has the opportunity to join groups. There's a harmony that I believe is very culturally related.
Shauna, jump in.
Yeah, I was thinking of the notion of the plumpness of that statement. Lost her memory, but not her mind, and you said that sounded like something Black folks would say.
Mm.
And one of the other beautiful surprises I think of this space is the way in which it helps us retain our culture. And so sometimes I refer to this group as the keepers of the culture, right? Because as we get into spaces, sometimes we lose some of that mother tongue that we had, that our
Mhm.
grandmothers had, that others had. And there's a certain intonation, there's a certain way of saying these things that I think gets captured and kept in music, right? So even if your great grandchildren were raised in Burnsville or, Shakopee, right? There's a way that they could tap and access that sound, that tongue, that language within the music, right? There's love in it, just like soul food, right? There's love in it, there's flavor in it, right? There's style, and you know it when you smell it and sense it. And so we have two routes actually to access the choir in the face of the pandemic. Like so many, like even this example here, we had to think, how do we keep this? If we can't meet in person, how do we keep that connection? And what unfolded was something altogether new. And that is our online programming for Amazing Grace Chorus. So once a month online, once a month in person. Online, our components include time for a check-in question. And our check-in is usually around something that's occurring for us. We knew people needed to process
So
the
like what? What's the check-in question?
yes, yep, process like the racial pandemic, when the George Floyd response hit, when we all responded to it.
So your
Um,
question might be, how you feeling about this, or
how are you feeling about this? How are
Okay.
you processing?
Okay.
What are you doing to keep your joy at a time like this, right? Especially when we were really cooped up and tight knit. And then here's where another piece unfolded. One of our members, in fact, recently wrote a book called Things My Daddy and Them Taught Me. And in it, she takes phrases. So there's language again. She takes phrases that she heard her family saying. And so we have discussions about those. Again, accessing our memory now, not only through music, but also through conversation and dialogue, right? The other pieces in there are golden nuggets, just little helpful hints for us. We have a segment for health and wellness where Miss Probst, the nurse of the nation, I promise you, right? She comes on and walks us through exercises, breathing online together. She's reminding us to take our water in as we're having our session. And then another nugget that is really special is one that Reverend Coleman really helps to organize too, and that's around inviting special guests in. So from Billy Steele to Robert Eddie Robinson to David Hurst, others, they've come in and spent time with us too. And it even gives them an opportunity to tap in to the memories that they had. And he can say some more about that probably too.
No, go ahead, please. Talk
Reverend
more.
Coleman. Mm-hmm.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah, we have some really special guests that come in and share their stories. They talk about what music means to them and how music has brought them through, and it sparks the interest of the people online that are in the call, because they can also relate to, well, what drew them to music and what drew us together, that kind of thing. And music is the common denominator. So it's a wonderful thing.
What about, so what is it that they tell you, and what is it that you know about music that does bring people together? What is it in the music that does that?
Well, the themes. It's part of our culture, and not just our culture, but our faith. And it's hard to separate our culture from our faith, you know? And people can relate. Some people say, well, can we pray, you know, or can we talk more about what the song means to me, you know, personally, that kind of thing. So we internalize the songs and feel, if you will, what we're singing about. And it goes to our culture and who we are again. Yeah.
I would like to add part of the kind of the definition of music, because a couple times while we're singing as a choir, Carl knows if we're all on the same tone.
Mhm.
And in some of the songs, if we're not saying the word the way they're supposed to be said, if we're saying it too short or we're not making it long enough, then Carl will say, let's do that again. And eventually, some of us will know that it's supposed to be a little bit longer than what we thought. And that was a new training for me, because like I said, I don't think I could sing. But that is one thing that I always remember, that some of the words that are written require a different length in enunciating them. It also related to phonics. And so I get so excited every time I go, because I learn something new that is very culturally related about how we speak, how we sing, how we motion. And we have a thing about us where we always have to be moving. So some of our songs require us to move. And it's so interesting with people, you don't think can dance. They can move when we're singing a spiritual song. And so that again just reinforces my thoughts about culture.
Carl, how does it work? How does the music move people like that? Because I've seen that myself, where people that can't move, ain't thinking about moving, and the music has another kind of inspiration in it, or has a force inside that takes them up, captures them, and lifts them,
Yes.
makes them light.
Great question. I'm reminded of one of our singers who leads the song "He's an On-Time God,"
Oh,
and she's a
yes.
senior, and she's a seasoned senior, if you will.
Mhm.
And when she comes into the building, I remember at one performance she came in and needed assistance with a walking cane and people to help her on the stage. But when she engaged in that song and started to do the lead vocals for that song, she gained energy from somewhere. She put her cane down, she stepped off of the stage area and walked the aisles with the microphone without assistance. And it's the energy of the song and the power of the connection with community, and everybody was on their feet and enjoying the music as Sister Probst talked about the call and response. Well, the audience engaged in a call and response with the senior. And she really sang that song, And after the song, she kind of went back to, needing a little assistance. But when she engaged, my point is, when she engaged in that song like that, she got all the strength that she needed. And so that's a wonderful memory for me.
I'm a writer, and I call writing my art. And for me, writing is like singing, or like playing music, or like dancing even. I mean, I have a relationship with the page. If I'm writing with a pen, or if I'm keyboarding, there's something personal happening between me and in this process of
Yeah.
creating, of documenting, of telling a story. And so there's this feeling of transcendence.
Yes.
And one of the things I do as a writer, as a person that loves to watch performers, is notice how in performance, not actors so much, but musicians in particular, reach a place where they lose themselves, and
Mhm.
they become something else, or at
Mhm.
one with the music, or they become vessels more than themselves. They, at that point, appear, and I ask them how they feel about it, but they appear simply as conduits, and
Yes.
something else has commanded the room, and their humility, their training, their gift, their earnestness in approaching the music or the event allows them to be mediums almost for a larger expression of culture. Does that make sense to you? And
Yes.
talk
Yes.
about that.
Absolutely.
Well, music is such a healer. It's such a healer. And one of the things that happens is that when you engage with music, you forget about your problems, you forget about your ailments. It's such a distraction from all the things that might be going not well with your health, that kind of thing. And so it's such a healthy way of exploring and engaging and and accessing memory and just expressing yourself through music. Yeah, it's a wonderful thing.
My sister may be tuned in to the program, and if she is, Patricia, I should have you log on. If you and our mom, sister's keeping my mother, who is a singer and evangelist, and I'd love to have her come on the program if she's available. Patricia, if you're there, and I know you're watching, but if that's something that mom might do, uh, uh, I'm gonna have you join the program. So let's see, I don't know how to get a link to you. Patricia, send an email to azkirsten, az.kersten @gmail.com, and she can get your email and send you a link if that's something you can do. Carl Plumman, let me hear you sing something. Are you interested in sharing? Yeah.
Oh my. I'll sing a song, This Little Light of Mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine. I'm going to let it shine. This little light of mine. I'm going to let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine. Let it shine.
All right. All
Wonderful,
right.
wonderful. And so when I talk to my mom, sometimes it's easy for the two of us to talk in our code. And our
Mhm.
Yeah.
code is, I might say, something like, "How you feeling?" Well, I got joy. It's like joy
Mhm.
bells
Yeah.
ringing
Mm.
in my heart.
Yes.
Joy bells ringing in my heart. It's a song I learned as a kid, but when
Mhm.
I say it, I remember my grandmother, and that was a song she sang in church every night
Mm.
and on Sunday all day. So joy bells ringing in my heart. I will often walk or talk to my mom and say things like, "We walk in the light.
Yes.
Mhm.
Wonderful light
Wonderful
shines
light.
all around me by day and by
Yeah.
night.
Yes. Yes.
Jesus, the light of the world," right?
Yeah.
Yes.
I might be missing some of the words right now,
You got
but
it.
these songs are with me, and they show up when you need them.
Yes.
They show up
Mhm.
when
Mm.
you need them. And to me, uh, even if my mother's short-term memory is such that she might say the same thing again and again every 10 minutes or so, we can shift out of that into a memory of
Yeah.
the story of the song, because the songs are narratives of experiences that we had that are real and that are personal, that protected us, that transformed us, that saved us in many, many ways, many, many times. Shauna, what are you thinking about?
I mean, you're so spot on. I think of even in some of our online experiences, let's say we've um, discussed like an issue that's related to racism or our political climate right now, or this, that, and the other, that there can be a heaviness, right, that comes with that. But then when the song comes on after the discussion of it, it's almost like, again, that transcendence, right?
Mhm.
Where we are lifted out of our circumstance, right? If only for a moment. And it's in that space that you can tap memory for energy to carry on once the song ends. So I think the music, I think the rhythm, I think the beat creates a well of healing that we have to tap from, right? And that's an act of survival. Uh, it's an act of connection, right? It's an act of healing, and that we need more now than ever.
It's an act of resistance. I'm thinking now,
Mhm,
we're talking about being on
mhm,
campus at Morehouse when I
mhm,
was maybe, 18, 19 years old as a freshman down in Atlanta, and being there and meeting some of the people that emerged as icons of the civil rights struggle. And we would meet in this place called Canterbury House across from the campus,
mhm,
and almost spontaneously, people would erupt into song.
mhm.
Uh, Freedom now, the chant, freedom now.
Yes.
It was one chant they would do, and they start with uh, oh, oh, freedom, before I'll be a slave, I'll be buried in my
Mhm.
grave, right?
Right.
So these were the marching songs, right? These are the songs
Yes.
that we
Yes.
sang before we went to protest marches.
Mhm.
And ain't gonna let nobody turn me around,
Ain't gonna let
Mhm.
turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. Marching up to King's Highway at church, marching up to Freedom Land in the movement. But
Mhm.
the music is powerful. It's
Mhm.
powerful, and it gives you life. It gives you power, and it gives
Yes.
you joy, and lifts you up. So Beverly, this whole question of our community coming to grips with, not coming to grips with, but figuring out ways to take ownership of our health and healing, and in the process, uh, thinking, talking, connecting differently about the challenges we have, about the question of mental health, not being stigmatized, right? Not being afraid to feel like we're going to be looked at some kind of way. If somebody think we're not operating on the full tank or something like that.
right.
We're getting beyond that, I believe. But how do we keep going so we're not doing ourselves damage and limiting our capability and our potential to continue to heal? What do you think?
Well, I think that we've gone beyond, there's not enough mental health counselors, I guess you would have to really serve our community, which I feel that that's really unfortunate. And from a public health perspective, what we're seeing is the behavior that has not begun with some kind of intervention. And so you have the health that a person has is being demonstrated through their behavior. And I think that's where this violence comes from. I think that's where this, I'm not going to do anything I don't want to do. And a lot of that is very much related to how we were raised. And that's where the unfortunate piece is. I do and feel hopeful that if we can reach our young people now and help them understand that we understand their behavior and understand the roots of it, and we can, if they allow us to, guide them into a different pathway than where they're going. But we've got to start earlier. You know, we can't, by the time they get 18 and 19, it's almost too late. I look at our grandsons, my grandson and your grandson, and realize that the early education that your daughters had and my children had is panning out. And that's not happening or hasn't happened for several generations now. So a lot of the behaviors that we see are because people's development is not on the right path that helps them understand the difference between right and wrong. It's this I don't care attitude that too many of them have. I think that as adults, there's got to be a collective way, a cooperative way, a collaborative way of how we can come together to save our community. Because I'm at the point now at my age of really being sorry that I think it's almost too late. Every time you turn on the news, if you turn the news on, there hasn't been the intervention that should have happened before the crisis, where our young people are at war with each other, one way or the other. So how to change that? I firmly believe that we've got to get more of our young people in the church. I think that the churches, because we have new ministers, younger ministers, is in a position where they can reach the young people, because that's what's going to happen. The young people have to be reached in ways they haven't been reached before.
Well, what you're describing also, Beverly, I believe, is the conundrum that we've always been in this country. On the one hand, countries, nations have rites of passage that grow, particularly young boys, but young girls as well, from childhood into adulthood, pathways that suggest responsibility and accountability, cooperation, and that suggest an awareness of the common good, as well as the individual opportunity. The challenge that we have experienced as African people here, in my view, is that the rites of passage we created was created in a hellacious situation, the environment that we were in. This is kudos to us. We found joy, despite the fact that we were living in hell, right? Call it slavery, and call it Jim Crow, and call it the entire white supremacist power and thought system. Be that as it may, we still maintained a sense of personal dignity and of hope and expectation, and a commitment to sustaining and being here, despite the efforts to destroy, minimize, derail, and devalue our lives. And I think when you talk about how there's this troubling disregard among young people, that's simply a reflection of the pressure of the outer society on us. At the same time, we know that it's us that is forcing and has forced the outer society to change. And at one level, this is a spiritual, battle, if you will, where we are through our experience and our commitment to the spirit, the idea of love, I think we are wanting to demonstrate another path, a way for us to live freely, to be, humane with each other and with everybody else, but also to make it so that those who oppress us don't feel the need to use their terrible fear as an instrument of crippling and denying our humanity, because we know that they have done that and they continue to do it. So this is a struggle that's going on. And I think through the long lens of history, I would say that we are pressing on. And I say that for us and for our quest for humanity's sake, victory is both imminent and inevitable. I think we have to have that hope and keep moving with that power. But that is all encapsulated, I think, in the story of the song. And I think it's so wonderful that the chorus is one of the places where we can express this indomitable spirit of life receiving and life giving that I think describes who we are. Shauna, what do you think? I'm running on here, but how does it sound to you?
It sounds true and it resonates. Yeah. Especially around, again, that life-giving space, right? For us. So I look forward to more. We've grown, in fact, over the course of the past few months. In the face of the pandemic, the chorus grew, right? Which was very interesting. The other thing that's so interesting about our growth before has been that it's been folks experiencing it and then bringing other people in. Like, okay, I have to tell my sister about this, and she lives in Texas, right?
That's right.
Or one participant, she actually came because her mother has dementia. She's from Trinidad, right? So she brought her mother, right? And then she realized how much she needed it too. And so that's another thing that I'll hit. There's the assumption that, if the Amazing Grace chorus is related to spreading the news or dispelling myths around dementia, is it only for people who have dementia, right? And that's not true at all. In fact, I would expand it to say that it's also for people who've been touched by it, right? So what we've noticed is there aren't that many degrees of separation in our community between those who have dementia and those who don't, right? If someone can't point to a relative, they've pointed to a neighbor, right, across the street, right? Like there aren't that many degrees of separation. And so this seems like a very natural way, right, to gain knowledge over time. So that, again, we can be helping others and helping them put the post-it by the door on their way, out the back door, real talk, or similarly, I find myself doing some of those things with my dad as someone who's walking into that sandwich generation period, right? And so this is, again, a very natural way to experience the joy, the healing, the resistance, the life-giving force while spreading the news too, right?
So kudos to Walker West and the Grace Chorus. This is phenomenal work. It's important work. After Brother Braxton called me, I saw the press release first and sent a note, and he gave me a call back and said, yeah, let's do this conversation. And then sent me a link to Walker West website. Boy, is it wonderful. What a wonderful website. Number one, so I'm saying this to promote the website because I went on, they got a store. You got t-shirts and hoodies and stuff. So I bought me a bunch of stuff to start with. I said, it's beautiful stuff, but this is what I ought to be doing. Wherever I have a chance to support a business in our community, an effort in our community that's consistent with my values, I should do that. So I was glad to discover a place to buy some mugs. I bought your mugs. These are ones I have from another Black organization, but I'll be getting them from from Walker West, and they bought T-shirts and they bought hoodies, and I'll be getting gifts for people.
I love
It's
it.
a beautiful gift, but I think we should use our ordinary everyday to celebrate and lift each other. And that's what this website affords me the chance to do. It also, I didn't know this, Beverly, but they have music instruction for older people as well.
Yes.
So you might not have known, I've got a saxophone down here
Oh, you
that
do?
I play every 15 years. You know, I have no training at all.
All right.
But I think I have a feeling, you know, I know a feeling is not enough. It's okay for me, but I'd love to be able to play and to play the same thing twice. I can play something pretty, but can I play it a second time? I don't know. You know, that's where musicianship and training come in, right? And you can play it again and again and again and again and again. So I signed up for online instruction for my saxophone. So I'm just saying this to let people know that's how wonderful and powerful this resource is. And I hope that this discussion will lead a lot of people to taking advantage of and supporting and being supported by the Walker West proposition, which is a valuable asset in our community. Brother Carl, what are you thinking about right now?
Oh, I'm reflecting on all of the things that we've discussed, and my mind goes back to one of the topics that we were discussing just a while ago. How do we affect change? You know, and we said through communication, through engaging, through listening, and through showing love. And one of our members actually wrote a song regarding the Black Lives Matters movement.
Yes.
And he wrote it to the tune of Black Lives Matter, Hallelujah. Black Lives Matter, Hallelujah, and so on and so forth. It's a beautiful rendition, and we hope to be able to get it to the Black Lives Matters movement. But, you know, we have a lot of rich seniors in our group who have so many gifts and talents. We have authors and songwriters and things like that. So it's a beautiful way for members of the community to come together to share all aspects of culture and music. Yeah.
So true.
I just want to add something, because I think maybe what we need to do is start singing "Victory is Mine."
Yeah.
Claim it. Mm-hmm.
Let's start pushing that too.
Yeah.
Victory is mine. Victory is mine.
Well, the message is the medium. It's a powerful message, you know. I think you sing it, you say it, you believe it, and then you have it, you acquire it. That's a good thing. Listen, this has been a great conversation. I'm so glad to have this time to talk with you. Beverly, always a joy and a pleasure to talk with you. You call her the nurse of the nation. That's a new one for me. I always called her the chief health officer of North Minneapolis, but that's been a while. So now she's nurse of the nation. I like that. I like that. That's cool. That's cool.
Oh, thank you.
Calling, huh?
Take a minute and talk about COVID-19, if you would, Beverly. It's always important for us to talk about that. And how have you all managed the choir? You said that you moved from always in person to sometimes in person, sometimes virtual. Talk about what you've had to do to pivot to make sure that you could connect with people safely during the pandemic. Shauna?
Yes. Yeah. We wanted to be especially careful, especially with a population that would be so vulnerable health-wise to the pandemic. So that included explicit directions and protocol that we fell into, ensuring that people were spaced apart. We use singers' masks, which are similar to the other ones, but they almost have like a duck beak bill, if you think of how that's made. That gives more room for the movement of the lips and,
and breathing probably too.
And breathing, especially for singing. That's right. Being careful how we're handling items, right? To make sure that anything that's shared is individual, right? So
how many members in the chorus, in the choir?
Now, if we're including our online programming too, we count that we're at about 30,
Okay.
tipping there, with room for growth.
And
Right.
so if a typical in-person meeting, you might have, what, 15, 20 people show up, 30 people?
Mm-hmm.
And how's that look? Describe it to me. Are you in the pews at the church, or no, you're not, you're at the center,
We're at the center at Walker
right?
West.
And so
Yeah.
how does that room look where they are all practicing?
Yes, we are in the performance hall there. And so it could almost look like if you picture what rows would typically look like and now remove maybe 2 chairs in between each one,
Mhm.
individually spaced out and staggered, right?
Okay.
So that there's room.
Okay. And Beverly, let me ask you to talk about our community's approach to, in response to COVID-19, what we have done successfully and what we need to do still, and any thoughts you can share regarding motivating our families, our parents in particular, to make sure that they themselves, but their children, are vaccinated.
I believe that education is the first and most important thing. And I know that there are individuals outside of my church and outside of my community that have this idea that they don't need to get vaccinated because it infringes on their freedom. But in my church, we do. Everybody has been vaccinated, and we actually were one of the first churches to bring the congregation to church to get their vaccinations.
Mm-hmm.
And so I know that they've all had their first, second, and they're going to get their booster. And I personally have been part of a program called Black Nurses Rock.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been able to convince the Department of Health that our people want to come to places they're familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a result of that, I do vaccinations on Friday and Saturday at a barbershop. And that is really a joy. And so
Which barbershop are you doing?
it's called Wilson's Barbershop. It's right across from
Tito's.
MLJ. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Everybody
Tito's place,
else-
yeah.
Yeah. And so he's dedicated a space for my station. And
Mm-hmm.
we also have had a van from UCare
Mm-hmm.
that comes and parks right outside. And it has been such a joy to watch the men. Men get their hair cut, even if they're bald, they got to be lined.
Right.
And that's an opportunity to give the education. And some of them are resistive, but after seeing me a couple times, they'll say, all right, here I am. Here, I'm going to get it. I'm going to get it. And they brought their families. And so that's probably going to be an effort that we're going to continue through the end of this year and into next year, because it has been such a successful. We've also gone to places like Phyllis Wheatley, and we've gone to other churches in our community. And along with providing the vaccinations, we've also started with the education, listening to people's reason as to why they're kind of fearful. In terms of the community at large, I think I'll go back to our 25 to 35, 40-year-olds. Some of our young men are really resistant.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot of education to convince them that they might harm someone that in their family, their children now, or their aunt, uncle, grandma, mother. And that seems to kind of get them interested. But I think having that availability in the barbershop has really worked well in helping them feel comfortable.
What do you think is the basis for resistance in that age group in young men? Is it a macho thing? Is it a man thing?
Yeah.
Or what is it?
I think it's a man thing. And it's hard because even with my son, I had to make sure this is what you're going to do. And I don't think that many of our young fathers are resistant to anybody telling them what they need to do to be safe. Mm-hmm. They'll even share how difficult it has been to have a relationship with their child's mother. And so that opens up another whole need in our community, where at
North Point,
Phyllis Wheatley or Pilot City, they can go and actually talk to a counselor about how that situation has got them in a situation where it's unhealthy for them and their child.
Mhm.
So you find out a lot when you're outside of a health clinic that you probably wouldn't know in a setting like the barbershop, because they feel safe and they share things that I don't even want to hear, but they're respectful in the fact
Mhm.
that they know, because I'm public health, that I might have some advice that they might want to heed to. In 2017, I did a study to find out how many African Americans could be at risk for 55411 and 55412. And
Mhm.
there were actually 454 individuals that are 65 plus that are at risk. And I think that's what we're seeing in the hospitals, because those individuals were also had a chronic condition, and as a result of them being affected with COVID, ended up in the hospital. So it's a serious problem. I believe in our community. It's going to take a lot of coaching and education to get people to realize that this vaccine is something that is just as important as polio and
Mhm.
measles, that all of them admit, all the men that I've talked to admit, yeah, they had those, but this is different.
Mm.
It's in the air, they'll say, or it's in the cell phone,
Mhm.
or it might be on the disc or whatever. But they'll take other things. Like I tell them they can't drink anything but water after I give them a booster or vaccination. And they'll say, water? Can't drink any wine? I said, nope, you cannot. And so that's how I find out their habits.
Yeah, right, right.
They're not drinking water. I said, well, that's probably why you get sick.
Mhm. Drink
So
water.
it's kind of, it's kind of the same, keeping them, trying to help them understand how important it is that they get healthy and get the vaccinations. So,
I want to go back to one thing you mentioned earlier about the lack of therapists, counselors, mental health workers in our community. And
yeah,
the answer to that should be, since we know there's a need, how do we organize legislation either at the city level or the county level or state level to figure out how to have 500 counselors at North Point Health and Wellness? What would it be like, Beverly Probst, if we had 1,000 health workers
it would be
who,
so,
many of whom live in North Minneapolis or who are here, that can be trained in various levels of the profession,
yeah,
all the way up to the highest levels, like for therapy and specialties like that. But my point is that we have to get to where we say that our health is our business. But health is a business. It's a big
it
business.
is a big
And
business.
a lot of money is flowing through the healthcare system. And right now, we get the misery, they get the money.
Yeah,
That has to change.
that has
And
to,
we have to say that we are have to be part of the solution side of this equation. We can't simply be the problem.
that's
The
right.
solution has to come from us, for us, and all of the revenue streams associated with that problem solving ought to flow through us and our community as well. This
Yeah,
is big business, right? So I'm hopeful that we should have this conversation keep going so that, we don't say, oh, yeah, there's just not enough therapists to talk about mental health. We start saying, you know what? We need to have 1,000 trained therapists in North Minneapolis by the year 2025 or
yeah,
26. And that should be an employment goal, a service goal, a resource goal of getting people who are professional and trained who might live in the community but serving this community, who are from our families and communities. Well, we're out of time. Uh, 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 Brother Coleman, I'm going to come back to you, and Shauna, I'll close with you. Um, I'll ask you both to invite our listeners and viewers to support and join the Grace Chorus,
Yes, I
Grace
want to.
Choir or Grace Chorus?
Amazing Grace Chorus.
Chorus, okay, yeah.
Amazing Grace Chorus, and we do want to invite you to join. It is a dementia-friendly space and other chronic diseases, we say,
yeah,
and we welcome caregivers as well. But if you just love singing and you're a senior or um, maybe are a little younger than senior, we welcome you to join our choir. And it's a wonderful experience. And we meet twice a month right now. You'd really love being there.
Shall
Yeah.
we close us out with a general invitation as well and talk about Walker West?
Yes, absolutely. We are just excited again to have this programming at Walker West. Grateful for this opportunity to say more about it, and grateful to the Minnesota Board of Aging for the funding to continue to expand what we believe is a good thing happening. To participate, you are welcome to email Gale, Gale, at walkerwest.org, GALE at walkerwest.org. And you can also call 763 238 4071. 763 238 4071. We look forward to having you. If nothing else, pop in and check it out. And I promise you won't want to leave.
Here we go. Thank you also very much. Beverly, thank you, my friend. Good to see you, my neighbor.
Good to see you too.
And okay, we'll see you next time. I'm Al
All
McFarlane.
right.
Take care.
Okay. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Oh, Queen Justice, where are you? Did they beat you up or no? Lock you on the ground, take the crown away from you?
Oh, Lady Liberty, red, white, and blue. Did they take your dignity with their bigotry? Teach you that you're born to lose.
Free or guilty, it's gonna get filthy. Better believe, roll up your sleeves. It's gonna get rough, it's gonna be tough. We all agree, we've had enough.
We've had enough
Of all the rules you break,
We've had enough.
of all the money you make.
We've had enough.
No more life at stake.
We've had enough.
This is a proclamation.
It's been 400 years and we're 400 late. Together we stand from state to state. Going back in time won't make America great. We need justice now, people won't wait.
Action, no more distraction. Every step we take, we gain traction. If it can happen to one, it can happen to all. United we stand, divided we fall. Free or guilty, it's gonna get filthy. Better believe, roll up your sleeves. It's gonna get rough, it's gonna be tough. We all agree, we've had enough.
We've had enough.
Of all the rules you were breaking,
We've had enough.
of all the money you were making.
We had enough.
No more life gets taken.
We had enough.
This is a proclamation.
Free or guilty, it's gonna get filthy. You better believe, just roll up your sleeves.
It's gonna get rough, it's gonna be tough. We all agree, we've had enough.
We've had enough.
Of all the rules you're breaking,
We've had enough.
all the money you're making.
We've had enough.
No more life gets taken.
We've had enough.
This is the proclamation.
We've had enough.
Trayvon Martin and Tommy Rice,
We've had enough.
Michael Brown and Eric gonna pay the price.
We've had enough.
Philando, Breonna, George Floyd.
What? We've had enough.
So many gone, how can we fill the void?
How can we feel?
We had enough.
Void?
John Crawford, I know you've heard.
We've had enough.
Sandra Bland, come on and take a stand.
We've had enough.
Sean Bell,
Sean